All right, so picking up where we left off, when the price is below equilibrium, we end up with a shortage. If instead we have a price that's above equilibrium, just draw my supply and demand. If the price is higher than equilibrium, then we end up with a surplus. In the other video, I gave the example of when shoes go out of style and our store had ordered lots of them to sell. Now we've got lots of these shoes that nobody's wearing anymore. We end up with, here our quantity supplied at the price we used to sell them at, here's our quantity demanded. How do we get rid of these extra shoes? Or maybe a better example is summer's almost over. We've got lots of swimwear. People don't need new swimsuits as much at the end of summer. How do we get rid of it? We have a surplus. We have all this stocking our shelves. We need to make room for winter coats. How do we get rid of the summer swimsuits? Well, put them on sale, right? You guys know that. You haven't even had much economics yet. And you know that you put it on sale to try to get rid of it. That's what the market naturally will cause. It will cause sellers competing with each other, trying to get rid of it, to put the price, lower the prices so that the price will fall towards equilibrium. And as it does, notice that quantity supplied falls as the price falls. Remember, we don't shift curves when price change. Quantity supplied will fall as the price falls, and quantity demanded is rising as the price falls. Well, maybe I decide, you know what, now that swimsuits are on sale, I'm going to go ahead and get one for next summer. I'm going to go ahead and be prepared. So since it's cheap enough, I'm willing to pay now and hold on to it and wait. Or maybe I'm going to buy the next size for my kids so that we go ahead and have them in stock. So as prices start to fall, consumers start to be willing to buy more, the quantity demanded goes up, and producers stop ordering them. Manufacturers start making them for now, and they start focusing on what they're going to produce next summer. And so quantity demanded goes up. This is seen by the shifting to the right on here. And quantity supplied falls. We're shifting toward the left on the price axes, on the quantity axes down here, till we get to this magical point, which is called equilibrium. This is our Q star and our P star. So notice that it doesn't take the government coming along and saying, you know what, you need to lower the price on swimwear because the weather's getting colder. Let me leave this for a second so you can see it all, because I know it's harder to see. It doesn't take anybody mandating that they lower their prices or stop producing swimsuits now that's cold. The market works to clear. And the way the market works to clear is by adjusting the price. As buyers are competing against one another when there's a shortage, or in this case, sellers are competing against one another now that there's a surplus. Everybody wants to get rid of their swimsuits. How do I get you to buy mine instead of going to Macy's and buying theirs? I lower my prices. And this competition leads there to be a healthy clearing of the market. Okay, so back to looking at what happens when demand changes. So the last video showed demand increasing and price and quantity increasing as a result. If demand instead decreased, the opposite would happen. So if we're looking at sodas and a study comes out saying sodas are unhealthy for you, my demand for sodas will fall from D1 down to D2. Notice I've drawn the new demand to the left. And as demand falls, we go from our original price at that original intersection, that's my P1, down to my new price, that's my P2. And so the price has fallen, as have the quantity, going from Q1 down to Q2. Both are getting closer to this corner, which is 0. So when my demand has fallen, my price and my quantity will adjust and fall. If they didn't, what would happen? We'd have a surplus. And so the market forces encourage sellers to lower their price now that there's less demand. Maybe drinking Coke is no longer in style. Maybe we drink less Coke when it's cold outside. And so sellers know this and they start to lower their price. And as they lower their price, production falls and quantity demanded goes up because it's now cheaper. So the market clears there. All right, so there are 4 graphs in this. I've done 2 of them, demand rising and demand falling. The other 2 are supply rising and supply falling. Those are your 4 possibilities. Those are the 4 you're going to want to know and know how to reproduce and know how to interpret. So if something causes supply to change, what will be the effect on price and quantity, or if demand changes? So let's look at supply. If instead, and this is the graph that students most often get wrong, there's my supply curve, my initial supply curve. If supply decreases, do you remember from the last video we talked about how it shifts to the left or right? It's kind of like those dance songs that are always talking about to the left or to the right. So supply decreasing is going to move to the left. Now this is actually a graph showing supply decreasing. Can you see that? Now, a lot of people get confused with this because it looks like I have drawn supply going up. But supply itself is actually moving to the left, meaning that at every price, so this is our price, and down here again is our quantity, at every price, fewer goods are being supplied. So we're moving to the left towards zero on quantity at every price. So to the left is a supply decrease. What might cause supply to fall? Maybe the price of sugar goes up, or in Coke's case, maybe it's the price of corn syrup goes up. Now it's more expensive for them to produce, and so the price will fall. Maybe the cost of paying their workers has gone up. Maybe there's a natural disaster at their processing plant or at their bottling company, and so that's decreasing the supply. Maybe it's the case that they find out they can make more money selling flavored waters, and so they produce less of the soft drinks because the price of the other goods they could be producing has gone up. All right, and you'll want to write out a list of these too. I'm not going to take the time here to do it, but it's also in your information from before. But all of these things could cause supply to fall. And as supply falls, notice what happens. It's what you'd expect probably, right? If there are fewer Cokes being sold on the market and it's due to a change in supply, not a change in demand, what's going to be the effect on price? Well, here's our initial price, P1. Here's our new price up here, P2. Our price will go up as the supply falls. Natural disaster destroys the bottling company. Now every Coke is going to be more expensive. Bad weather destroys the crop of oranges. Now orange juice will be more expensive, right? So if the supply falls, prices are going to go up and quantity will go down. So let me write this out. Supply lowers, price up, quantity down. The opposite happens if supply increases. And this is our last option, our last graph. So if supply increases, what we'll see is that our price falls, what we'll see is that our price falls and our quantity increases. So looking at this, here's our supply and here's our demand. If supply is increasing, which way we're going to shift it? We're going to shift it to the right. So our new supply curve is to the right. As our supply shifts to the right, notice that causes our price to go from P1 down to P2, a lower price, and a higher quantity. Our equilibrium quantity, just looking at that intersection, that's where I'm drawing the dotted lines up and down and labeling. Quantity goes from Q1 up to Q2. And so this is my graph for supply increasing. All right, so those are our four options. I wanted to kind of draw these with you so you could see how it's done. I will post some examples where you can get some practice shifting supply and demand and talk about what's the effect on price and what's the effect on quantity so that you can work through that and know how to help that. Supply and demand is a concept that won't stop here. So if you're having trouble, go see a tutor, get some help, email me, whatever it takes. But go through and make sure you can understand this concept because we're going to continue with it in the future. And then we're actually going to add on aggregate demand, aggregate supply. So you want to make sure that you understand this as you're working through it. And let us know if you're having trouble. We'll try to help you in any way we can. Y'all have a good rest of your day.